Hello, and welcome to the Unconventional Path, Entrepreneurship and Innovation Stories and Ideas. I'm Bela Musitz.
And I'm Mike Wasserman.
Hey, Mike. Today we have a very interesting guest on the podcast. It's Mark L. Fox. This is another great example of a serial entrepreneur remaking themselves several times. Mark has also started a business that sells a product that most people don't even know what it is. This brings additional challenges to building a business and the approach you need to take. In other words, you need to educate your potential customers first before they're going to buy the product. What did you think, Mike?
Yeah, sounds interesting, Bela. I think the listeners are going to want to pay attention. This is a really interesting startup story about an aerospace engineer, a rocket scientist who left a secure job to become an entrepreneur. Now, the business Mark currently runs might sound a little bit wild at first. It did to me, honestly. But Mark is a rocket scientist, and he's going to do a really interesting job explaining his startup and the product he's selling. So buckle up, and let's get right to today's interview with Mark Fox.
Sounds great, Mike. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Sure. Hey, so let me ask you a question. If you're at a social event, a non-work related social event, and someone comes up to you and they get introduced to you and you get introduced to them, and after the introductions, they say to you, "So nice to meet you, Mark. What do you do?" How do you answer that question?
I just tell them, I've done a lot of different things. I was in rocket science, and then I was in a women's clothing company. And what I'm doing now is energy therapy devices. And people go, "What is that?" And then I try to explain it fairly easy. And how I got into that was my dog couldn't come up the stairs 28 years ago. I took her to the vet. She had severe arthritis in her spine. And the vet says there's nothing we can do. And then a veterinarian that I know is a friend of mine said, "Hey, there's this magic machine that can reverse arthritis." So I'm like, okay, so I don't believe any of this crap. It's voodoo stuff. But I'm like, all right, but it's my dog, so I'm going to look into it anyway. So I did. And that's how I learned about this. I never had a plan to go get into energy therapy. I'm not a doctor, rocket scientist, but that's how I got into it. It started with my dog.
Nice. It's a great story. So just as an aside, my sister's daughter is big into horses. She does all sorts of horse training. And she has bought one of these devices as therapy for the horses.
Yes.
Similar thing. So it's something that's been used, it seems like, in the veterinary space for quite a while. So tell us a little bit more about what this thing does and how it works.
Yeah, I'll touch on a couple things real quick because you brought it up. Is if you go man on the street with a microphone, you go, "Hey, do you know what PEMF is?" It's 1 out of 15 people, 1 out of 20 are going to know what a mat is from a chiropractor's office or a wellness spa. Interesting you said horses, though. In the horse world, 100% of the people know what it is. They all know what magnet wave is. They've seen it. They've had the horse treated with it. So it's very big contrast between people and horses. So PEMF stands for Pulse Electromagnetic Field. Sounds real fancy. It's not. It's what it sounds like. It's a pulse magnetic field, and it's actually the Earth's heartbeat. So you could open an app on your phone and see it right now. It's 7.83 hertz. It's the heartbeat of the Earth. It's actually comes from lightning bolts echoing off the ionosphere. Okay, so what I like to explain this way is you take it to a higher level is nothing in the world happens without an energy exchange. So you don't fall down, you don't cook food, you don't fall down and hurt yourself, you don't drive your car, you don't digest food, you don't cook food, you don't break a finger. Everything's an energy exchange. And so energy can be transferred to the body a number of ways. One is with electrical current, and most people are familiar with the TENS unit. You put some pads on you, you run some electricity through it. PEMF is a magnetic version of it, right, of energy transfer. Then you have light, sound, and vibration. Now, everyone listening on this call has been sunburned. That's an energy transfer. The sun, light, transferred energy to you. So the reason I chose PEMF is it's just the most convenient way to transfer the energy because you're not stationary, you're not laying on a mat, you're not having wires connected to you. You put it in your pocket, you bra, wear it with a lanyard around your neck, and you forget about it, go about your day, you travel, you drive your car, you go on an airplane, and you forget you even have it in your pocket. So that's why I picked PEMF, because it allows you to have therapy on the go. But that's what it is. It's an energy exchange. Now, what everyone in the community will agree is these two things. And then once you go past that, you start to get into, okay, trying to prove it, blah, blah, blah. Number one is your cells in your body have an electrical charge like a car battery. And when that charge gets low, the cells don't work as well and you get sick. So you got to have a good voltage on the cell to get nutrients into the cell and waste out. It's been proven to recharge your cell's batteries multiple times. ATP, which is the number one fuel that your cells use for food, this technology increases ATP up to 500%. And that's been proven in multiple studies. So those two things, I'm recharging cells' batteries, I'm increasing the food supply for the cells so the body can do what it does best, which is heal itself. That's it at the highest level. There's a million rabbit holes we can go down besides that, but we won't unless we need to. And because they're harder and harder to prove of what it's actually doing. And I have a saying that, and it's kind of weird because I'm the rocket scientist, I actually don't care how it works. I want relief before reason, because we could go down this rabbit hole, because I get in arguments with doctors all the time about mechanism of action. Explain it to me exactly. I'm like, you don't know how aspirin works. And if you think you do, you're lying to yourself, because it's never, ever been proven. You have a theory, but you've never proven how aspirin works, or any drug for that matter. So it's relief before reason. I really don't care too much about the technical part. Then when you get in an argument about placebos, yes, there's got to be some placebo effect. But you know what? When somebody's suicidal and they run these protocols and now they're not, or they're going to get a divorce and now they're not, or the kids don't want to hang out with them, now they do. I don't care if it is a placebo, because it worked.
Right. So let me understand a little bit about what are the different applications for a device like this. I mean, you talked about some mental health issues. You've also talked about some physical things as well. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, and there's a lot of protocols on there, and there's 60 protocols on the Vibe. And the more common ones are going to be anxiety, number one, because anxiety is the most common ailment in people and pets across the world. In every country, that is the number one issue, anxiety. Then, of course, pain in general, neck pain, back pain, those type of things, arthritis. Sleep is a big, big issue. And then PTSD, some Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, those type of things it really helps with. So there's a long, long list of them, but those are some of the top ones.
Got it. So if I had to summarize, so this is sort of a general wellness device. Is that one way to characterize it?
Yeah, it's an FDA general wellness device, but it has very specific protocols. So we get asked all the time, what frequencies does it run at? Because many devices out there just have a sine wave and they do a sweep of 4 to 12 hertz or something. This one has very, very specific. It's actually 2 frequencies at the same time. And if you picture it, it's like frequency A roughly. Frequency A is where is it, and B is what's wrong with it. But if you picture a chord on a guitar, and the reason this analogy is more than an analogy is this is actually an MP3 player. All the protocols I wrote on a music synthesizer. So there's songs. It just doesn't have a speaker. So it's a device that your body can hear, but your ears can't. So if you picture a chord on a guitar, right, a 2-string chord, the protocols are songs. And so the analogy I use is the Bee Gees put out 150 songs before they ever had a hit. So it's picture a pickup band in a garage trying to make it work, right? They're trying to come up with something that works. That's where these protocols came from. Literally was 8,000 practitioners in 35 years. A garage band, you try stuff, this works, that doesn't work, you throw it out. So we have a lot of core protocols that have a lot of pedigree to them. Some of them are more new that I've had to create out of need. For example, Lyme disease. I got asked 200 times, what do you have for Lyme? I'm like, nothing. Would ask me that. Then I got suckered into a Facebook Lyme group. And you look at these people's faces who have been dealing with this for 20 years. You go, okay. So then you dive into it and you start using just some of the fundamentals of how to take the protocols and the techniques and stuff and use your brain to say, how can I bridge this one, or do some research, as I know, like I learned 1 to 4 hertz will kill it, but you got to be careful because it causes Hertzheimer reaction, I think is the right term, where the bacteria the Lyme little bacteria is a mean little bastard, and it's going to spit poison when it gets killed. And so our first study was 100% success rate because every single person got sick and they quit using it. It's like, okay, so that's step one. Turn the power level back to 5 till you get more used to it. Then run the liver protocol after you run brainwave delta, the 1 to 4 hertz, to clean out the toxins. Then run the vagus nerve to reset your body. Rinse and repeat and start over. That's working really, really well. But that's something where I had to just go make up on my own out of a need because there wasn't another solution out there.
Got it. So when you use the word protocol, what you're talking about is sort of a recipe or a set of steps that you go through. If this is the thing you're trying to, if I have anxiety, then I go to the instruction book just to simplify it. Anxiety, okay, use this recipe on your device for anxiety. Is that right?
No, it's actually a lot simpler than that. So the protocols, when I say that, is they're all pre-programmed.
Okay.
You just automatically go to the one you want and hit play, and the protocol is in there. Okay.
Right.
When I get to Lyme disease, I just described, that's a combination of 3 protocols to make another protocol. Right. So
Understand.
most of them are very simple, alphabetically pre-programmed into the device.
Yeah. For the user, it's very simple. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Very good. So here you spent part of your career in the military, part of your career at NASA, some pretty senior leadership positions, big, huge organizations, huge bureaucratic organizations. And now you're engaged in running a small business. Talk to me about sort of that transition and sort of how that went, and what were the things that you learned from that transition?
Yeah, and to clarify, because this is a common mistake, I didn't work for NASA, and very few people do. I was a chief engineer on the Space Shuttle program for the solid rocket booster. So NASA doesn't build anything; contractors do, right? So that ends up being your customer. But I loved working on the Space Shuttle program, and then when you see a launch, right, it's very rewarding. But man, are they slow to make change. And especially after Challenger happened, we lost lives, was people just wanted to freeze and put their head in the sand. That basically said, you know, just make sure, what they used to call is make sure it's within family, that we've flown it before. And like, well, you know, that's impossible because we've never had Tommy have a flu on Tuesday on Mixer 4, right? That's never, even though it's in the procedure, you know, we're following procedures, there's always variables that are a little bit different. So that was always like a head in the sand kind of thing. The weird part of how, it's going to sound weird why I left aerospace, was I got offered a big promotion and I realized, and I could see it, right? If I take this promotion, that's all I'll ever do in my life. You get sucked into it and you become a prostitute. They're paying you too much, right? You can't go anywhere else. So I just decided to try something else. I went actually to build an airplane parts, which ended up being working for supplying parts to Boeing, was almost as bureaucratic as NASA. So then I moved to iMega with zip drives and the internet and new things like that, and call centers, which I knew nothing about at the time. And then I just got into, when I saw this technology, I know about this technology for 28 years, and I didn't go spend a bunch of time on it. I started like 10 or my wife goes, how many companies you start in the last 10 years? I'm like, I don't know. She goes, well, go count them. So I'm like, it was 12. Right. So the problem is, her nickname is Lucy Van Pelt from the Peanuts, because everything she cost a nickel. And if I spent $100 on advertising and it didn't pay for itself, she said, quit, you're going to broke. Right. So some of the, for your entrepreneurs trying to learn something, is everyone's kind of heard this version of what problem you're trying to solve, what's your solution, and why is your answer better than anyone else's, right? There's all types. Yes. And I'm a part of the Wizard Academy in Austin, Texas. Sounds a little weird, but it's the coolest entrepreneurial nonprofit in the world. You learn 2 to 3 day classes how to do cool stuff faster, okay, in communications and marketing. We used to ask those 3 questions when somebody come in. You know what we ask now? The first question, what is your markup? If it's not 10x, quit. Just quit now, because you can't afford the Zuckerberg model, right? So it's sad, but you have to have at least a 10x markup to start a company in the Facebook, Google, pay-per-click world, right? It's just, it sucks, but that's the reality of how much it costs. I've been doing this 4 years now, selling the Vibe, and it's every day that I have to worry about turning knobs and trying not to go broke with Zuckerberg taking all my money. So that is, that is a huge, huge challenge. And we're doing Sirius XM radio now. We're doing Peacock TV commercials, but all of them are like, it's stressful. Now, the cool part is this is the funnest job I've ever had in my life by far. It used to be me in the fish tank a year and a half ago. And now I got about a dozen people. I have 12 women in pajamas around the country doing customer service stuff in envelopes and helping, right? And I told all of them, I go, this is going to be the most satisfying job you've ever done, but this is not Housewives of Orange County. This is not a reality show. These are people with long-term mental, physical pain, or both. Some have been tortured, right? Divorce, crappy husbands, crappy boyfriends, miscarriages, deaths in the family, cancer, all those things. So you have tons of people that are real people. And that, you know, we get 400 emails a day now, probably 100 phone calls, and they're all a real person, right? That is desperate to try this technology. So and we can't give medical advice, right? So we get, even though they want us to. So we got to be very careful about that fine line. So it is definitely a bittersweet thing every day when you wake up, is to say, yay, there's something. I'm reading one right now. This guy didn't like this device at all, and the lady made him wear it home, and he called up and said, I've never felt this good in my life.
Excellent.
Right? That kind of thing. This person right here, the next email is like, I slipped, fell, broke my wrist, and I ran the wound repair for 2 days, and it doesn't hurt at all. And the doctor's like going, that's impossible, right? So those things are super satisfying of every day, but and then you got the mean, evil Facebook haters, right? That you got to go deal with. It's like, or do not deal with them and just shut them down. But it's it is definitely a interesting. This is part of my cognitive impairment. Is my friends and I, dude, you're going the wrong way. You're 64. I thought you were going to retire. I'm like, I probably will never retire, because it makes me think I woke up at 3 this morning on, here's 2 new things we need to go do today, blah, blah, blah. Yes. So that part's exciting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like you're a real entrepreneur for sure. I have those tendencies. So one of the interesting things about a product like this is that many people don't know about it. So it's not like you invented a better light bulb. People know what a light bulb is. So, okay, this one's better. I can read about why it's better and I'll buy it, or I won't. But this is like, well, wait a minute. What is this? How does it work? What does it do? So how do you sort of attack a market like that from a small business perspective, right? You can't afford $100 million advertising campaign to sort of educate people and introduce the product. How do you sort of approach that from your perspective?
I don't have the answer yet, right? It's a learning curve for sure, because I'm spending a ridiculous amount of money on Facebook, Google ads and stuff. And like I said, it's a fine line of, every month, am I going to make money or lose money this month? And so trying to figure that, and Roy Williams at the Wizard Academy, he's the highest paid ad writer in the world. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. I've learned more from him than any person in my life around business and personal stuff too, but certainly business. I said, dude, if you were me, what would you do? He goes, I would do 2 things, Mark. And I already told you and you didn't listen the first time. I would make compelling content and find joint ventures. That's it. He goes, I wouldn't even run Facebook, Google ads, or any of that stuff, because that is where the power's at. And I'm trying to go more and more that way, right? I have a naturopathic doctor on my staff now. I have a veterinarian that we just brought on. I'm trying to get more credibility with doctors and doing studies and those type of things. But an example at the Wizard Academy is, it's funny because we're all sitting around. These guys drink whiskey. I don't. I drink beer and wine. But they're like, we're sitting around and somebody goes, hey, there's wine sommeliers. Is there such a thing as a whiskey sommelier? And we all Google it on our phones. There wasn't. So the vice chancellor there, his name's Daniel, goes, we're going to have a certification class, has 5 levels of whiskey certification, blah, 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 just to get people into the campus so they can learn about it from a different funnel, right? And I'm like, well, what's level 5 going to be? He goes, I don't know what level 1 is. But we just started it and it sells out every single time. Now, they own the largest YouTube channel for whiskey. They have 2 or 3 of them. You just type in YouTube whiskey, you will find nothing but these guys. And they're killing it, right? And they've never ran an ad in their life. So they're
Yes.
creating compelling content that's humor, right? So the formula is always like, what's the big idea with your ad? What's the nuts and bolts? How do you deliver it with entertainment and provide hope? And this is a real challenge for me to deliver entertainment when it's anxiety and ailments. The TV commercial we have running right now is making a mockery of the pharmaceutical companies with their side effects. But I think I'm so far out there with this commercial, it's not working, right? It's funny, but people are not making that connection yet. So that's a live and learn entrepreneurial thing. I'm tied into 90 days of ad runs that I've been doing for 3 weeks and I can't turn them off because I got a commitment, right? So yeah, there's a lot of live and learn. I haven't figured that all out yet, but we're doing okay, right? So we're growing 500% per year over year. So
yeah. So may I ask what sort of the size of the business is?
Sure.
And what you're hoping to hit this year?
First year we did 380,000 in sales, then 2 million in the last year, 6.5. We'll do 15 million this year, I hope, in sales.
Oh, wow. That's impressive. It's impressive growth.
Yes, that's the numbers that we're hoping for and looking at. And we are we're growing that fast, but people are like, you're making a bunch of money. I told my friend, I'm like, here's how much money I made last year. And here's how much I spent last week. Right.
Right.
I just bought, I don't even want to say, over $500,000 worth of those a couple of weeks ago. So all the money, it's not going into my bank. It goes to my bank account, but it goes right back out to go buy stuff, right? Or to do studies and all that stuff.
Sure.
So it's interesting because in the end, it's like, am I ever going to make any money off this? I don't know. I keep growing the business. The bad news side of that, back to entrepreneurship, is I forget the exact quote, but the ultimate flattery is when somebody copies you. So I have multiple companies copying, not the devices, because they don't have the technology to do that. They're copying our brand and trademark and selling their products under us. So it's like,
no, really?
Oh, it's awful. So they're using Resona Health's name. And so it's a company that's just, because I got to be careful. My lawyers say, don't say anything, but screw them because I'm going to do a video today anyway. So there's a very popular review site that has every single review on there is negative and none of them are for our product. It's this other company that is selling stuff under our name. And the trickery, right? They're tricking people into subscriptions. They're actually changing. They're shipping from China, but they're putting the return address that's almost our address out of the same city. So they're doing everything to mimic us. And I hate lawyers. Everyone does for the most part, but now I got to have them. We're sending letters and fighting this stuff, but it's like, that's man, it's awful. So I'm actually going to go beg people today, never done this ever, to our customers, say, can you give me a real review on Google if you had a good experience? Yeah. Here's extortion, okay? Here's what they told me. I won't say their name. I said, these are not my company. Please take I went through the whole process to take everything down. They won't do it. They said, no, it's your stuff. We don't sell that stuff. It's not ours. So then I got three different sales reps from that company going, buy our service where we go get positive reviews and dilute the negative one.
Right. Exactly.
I go, well, that's like the mafia, right? It's like, no, I'm not doing that. So all the good stuff that we have help people and growing comes with a lot of bad things like that of people wanting to copy you and they're hurting your brand and doing stuff, and you got to try and fight back. And
that's just awful.
One thing to entrepreneurship, I want to make a point here because for your listeners, I was at the Wizard Academy. Ryan Dice was teaching a class on digital marketing. One of the themes that came out, and I've been avoiding this like the plague, I don't want to be the spokesperson for the company, but everyone in the room agreed 2026, tough crap. You have to be the spokesperson. You have to be on social media. You have to be authentic, vulnerable, and just put your stuff out there. It's like my wife yesterday goes, don't you ever shoot a video again without a collar on your shirt? I'm like, screw it. I don't have any pants on, right? I'm just shooting a video here talking about the latest thing that we're doing. So that's one thing that everyone is showing is working. And I've hired some of the most beautiful women in the world to be my spokeswomen. Me, this idiot, ugly 64-year-old guy with his aquarium in the back, this converts more than any ads hiring a person.
That's right. Because it's authentic. It's you. And I think people want that connection. People want that connection, particularly when they're sort of, I'll use the word, doing something they haven't done before, taking a risk, right? So first they get that connection with you. They feel comfortable with you. They say, oh, this looks like a good person. Now I'm willing to buy their product. Yeah. So just one comment about sort of the other companies using your name and, intellectual property, or whether they're not using intellectual property or not. The point I want to make is that a lot of companies say, well, I've patented my device, so I'm all set. The challenge is there is no patent police and there is no copyright police. There is no trademark police. You have to go hire a lawyer. And you have to basically be the police and then hire the lawyers who can then go take care of those things. And those are very expensive things for sure. So, that's a real challenge for a lot of small businesses, particularly in this world where everyone has a microphone, everyone has a camera, and they can exploit what you're doing at your expense. So I hope that all works out for the better of you. And I also think that these large companies that host these people that are doing that should have a firmer response to that, right? As you said, hey, look, I proved that's not us. Take it down.
Well, for example, I mean, my whole team, we had this conversation. It's like, so I went and bought their stuff to see how it works. And what they're doing is you buy a single bottle and they automatically sign you up for subscription, right? And they have no customer service, so you can't turn it off. The hard part is these customers are calling their bank and the bank is Googling the name and then they're giving them our phone number, right?
Yes.
So I'm getting better business, all that kind of stuff. So one comment on patents, and it's going to be opposite of what you think I'm going to say, or most people. Patents are, in the most part, are worthless unless you can protect them. So
I have said that 1,000 times.
The only reason I have 4 patent pendings is for intellectual property. If I ever have an investor want to sell it, it makes it sound good.
Yes.
Now, what is valuable specifically with my devices and infinitely more affordable is copyright. So because mine are all MP3 songs, as I said, I have every protocol copyrighted. And that is the hardest thing for somebody could take this apart and an engineer could look at the board and figure out how to.
Right.
Nowadays, you can take a picture of it and go, hey, Manish, ChatGPT, draw this thing for me and give me the drawings, right? The Gerber files and stuff. What they can't do is frequency pairs. They can't put it on an oscilloscope or a digital analyzer and figure out what it's even doing. I know because I tried to do that because I was trying to prove it to myself that it was putting the right stuff out before I sold them. This is the best idea invention I ever came up with in my life still today. I'm sitting there losing sleep over that. How do I know? I feel guilty if I can't confirm it's really putting out the mix of frequencies. So then it dawned on me. I'm like, wait a minute. The human ear is 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. Our device is 1 to 1,000 hertz. If I put a magnet up to this thing and play Stairway to Heaven from Led Zeppelin, and I can hear the bass, the music. If I can hear a clear song, that means everything inside of here was soldered correctly and working correctly, right? That is our zero cost quality control that we have in the manufacturer right now. You run a song for 10 seconds on every single device. That's what we've been doing since the get-go. Like, that is the amount of money I wasted on oscilloscopes and digital analyzers that I don't know how to use anyway. Right? Yeah. And this was the simplest, easiest way to prove that it's actually putting that frequency out.
Yeah, that's really clever. That's really clever.
The smartest thing ever came up with that. So
yeah. So if someone's thinking about starting a business, and let's say they have a product idea, and again, it's not a product, it's not a new light bulb. It's something that people don't know what it is, that they need to have to educate their customer before their customer's going to make a purchase. What sort of 1 or 2 words of advice would you give them if they were thinking of doing something like that?
MVP, right? Your minimum viable product. The analogy that if you're as old as me, you can remember like Palm Pilot, the guy walked around with a wooden block and a toothpick for a year, just pretending it worked, right? And getting feedback from those type of people. So minimum viable product, get it out there as cheap, as fast, as easy as you can. Customers are not always right. Sometimes they don't know if it's something new like that. They can't really comment because it hasn't existed before. So it's like before the cell phone was there, how would you explain, something that has a phone and a music player and a computer and everything in your hand, right? So, and I've made, and just doing the minimal research, and now I didn't know what ChatGPT was 12 months ago, and I use it 30 times a day now. I've used Mana 6 times this morning, okay? There's so much more stuff you can go do and tools to help you with that, to give you a head start. And good example where I wasted 3 months of my life. I made the assumption that cortisol would go down if stress came down, right? So if you're stressed out, your cortisol is going to be high. So I ran this huge study with dogs that are in the largest no-kill shelter in the world. I think there's 850 dogs 2 hours south of me. My logic was measure cortisol in their saliva and see if the device brings the cortisol down. What I learned after I wasted all that time and money was, and I figured dogs had PTSD if they're in jail because they didn't deserve to be there. In dogs, animals, excuse me, and people, if they have PTSD, their cortisol is already low and nobody knows why. So that's the wrong marker to use to measure stress. I didn't learn that until I ran the whole damn study and said, hey, everyone's low, and they got a little lower, but they were too low to start with. Why? Then I dug into all of that. So those type of things is just minimum viable product, get it out there quick. One of my marketing guys said with the Facebook ads, never underestimate the bad taste of your customers, because some of the ads we run are so ugly and that they couldn't possibly convert, and they do. So one phrase I've said forever is, how can you fail in 2 weeks? Do not procrastinate about how long it takes to go test that thing. You got 2 weeks and minimal budget. I remember doing this when I was at iOmega. I sat there and argued with the staff and they wouldn't let me do something. I'm actually peeing at the urinal next to the CEO. I said, why the hell can't I just run a damn experiment? What I learned from that is the word experiment. If you're in business and you hate the word experiment, it means you hate America, apple pie, hot dogs, and Chevrolet. You're just a communist. So when you use the word experiment, he goes, I don't care if you experiment. I go, okay. He goes, you got budget for it? Yeah. So 6 years later, somebody said, hey, that project's not on the approved list. What project is that? I go, it's an experiment. I go, how long you been doing it? I go, 6 years. Why the hell are you still doing it? I go, made $6 million last year. You want me to quit? And it got quiet, right? The other analogy is the Space Shuttle existed for 30 years. Every launch was an experiment. It was never production, even though the world thinks it is. Nope. I mean, what we flew that day was built a year and a half earlier. That's how the production line worked. So you're sitting there before launch going through your notebook and you go, ooh, I wouldn't make that decision today based on what I know, but I did a year and a half ago. So is it okay? Is it acceptable to fly? And people cringe when I tell them this. On average, Space Shuttle had 22,000 defects per launch. That all the engineers have looked at and said, for these reasons, we think we're building a 6 million pound bomb that we're trying to control, right? It is not, if you want to make it really safe, you give one astronaut a backpack and no satellite. We put 6 astronauts on there in a school bus size satellite. You got to use some energy to push it. So there's always that kind of risk trade-off thing, but that's a long answer to your question. So the main thing I'd walk away with is how do you fail in 2 weeks would be one of the ones.
Yeah. Hey, so here's another question about a new product like this. How do you think about pricing? How do you think about what the MSRP of your product should be?
Exactly what I was saying earlier, I think before we started, is you got to have a 10x markup. Now that doesn't mean it costs you $100 to make. I'm going to sell it for $1,000. You just got to go start with that and say, if it costs $30 to make, can I sell it at 300 and go experiment that? See there, surveys on it. Actually, the hard part is you can't really get surveys because people don't ever do what they say they're going to do in a survey. You have to actually put the damn thing in a market and test it and see if it sells that way. Right. So weird story with entrepreneurship. I spent forever designing this, right? 4 days, before I had to spend all the money for the mold tooling for this device. Me and my wife got embezzled and we lost half our retirement. And it was from somebody that I thought was a friend for 25 years.
Wow.
Find out he even stole money from his parents. So we lost half my retirement. I actually went to Roy Williams, the guy I was just talking about. I go, dude, and I told him about it. He goes, what do I do? He goes, I would just go back to aerospace and build rockets, because his quote, you can't afford to make enough noise, Mark, with your new product. And I didn't want to listen to him, and I didn't. I'm glad I didn't. But the funny part is my wife goes, after about a week, she goes, you know what, dude, you'll be impossible to live with. You spent all this time on this. Just go spend the rest of our money and make it happen. So this was 4 days away from never existing or the company existing.
Right.
You know,
Right. I think every successful entrepreneur has a story like that,
yeah.
right? Where the fuse was just about ready to blow up, and, they persevered, they kept going, they kept moving the ball forward down the field. And eventually they got to a point where they had some success.
Well, if you don't know Elon Musk's story with that real quick, he blew up every rocket he had budget for. He walked into the meeting and everyone in the room goes, we're getting fired, right? And he goes, actually, it costs less than I thought. So we have enough budget for one more, but then you're fired.
Right.
So SpaceX got developed. They had money for one more rocket.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's a huge story that you just said.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Hey, so you also wrote a book. Can you tell us what the title of the book is and what it's about?
It's I got one right here. It's called, I didn't know you were going to ask about that, so I'm not really plugging it, but it's called Go Find Joy.
Okay.
And gofindjoy.com. And the reason I wrote it was all the marketing guys, and I'm a marketer too, yelling at me. It's like, you can't advertise. It does 60 things. Pick something. So I picked anxiety. As I said earlier, it's the #1 ailment in people and pets. So I wrote the book to make awareness around the most common ailment in the world. There is hope. Other stuff hasn't worked for you, or the side effects of the drugs. This technology can help. It helps a lot of people. And my sinister plan with the book is to get more affiliates and wholesalers, because that's the relative to entrepreneurship. I'll make it this easy. Putting a ChatGPT, all the things back in August. I'm like, what do I do? He goes, Mark, you don't need AI to analyze this. You spent too much money and you didn't make enough. Okay. So then I look at my ROAS on Facebook and Google and all that, and they're bad. The best ROAS I have, return on ad spend, is affiliates, besides the wholesalers who are buying 10s and 100 packs. Because they're fixed. I pay a 20% commission, which is huge, but it's fixed. So the ROAS 20 into 1 is 5. So I know what it's going to be every month. And so I'm spending a ton of ads right now just recruiting new affiliates. And the honest thing is, I know it's a numbers game. 95 out of 100 won't do anything, or they'll share it, on their Facebook post. Their mom and dad might buy a couple, but 1 out of 100 will become a real affiliate and sell 50 or 100 units a month. So I'm playing that numbers game. And even if the 95 don't do anything, at least they shared my message. So I'm making it super easy with our ads and content to share it. So as of November last year, and it's February 18th, I'm growing really fast. We were getting 2-3 affiliates a week. New ones were getting 20 to 30 a day. Wholesalers, the same thing. You used to get 1 a month. Now I now get two a day. Wholesalers are awesome because they get to make 65% margin, and I didn't have to go pay Zuckerberg to get them because they're already in the funnel, right? Mm-hmm. So some super simple stuff that ain't rocket science like that is, hey, dumbass, the affiliates are your best margin. Go nurture those people. And so that's what we're doing right now. So it's constant learning curve.
That brings up an interesting question for entrepreneurs when they think about, okay, I have my new product. Now, how do I get it to customers? How do I make customers aware of it, right? So there's I have a website, I buy Facebook ads, I buy Google AdWords, et cetera, and you're sort of doing it yourself. The other way is this notion of distributors or affiliates, et cetera. So how did you approach that, and how has your view on that evolved over time?
Most of our sales are B2C. Like I said, we have wholesalers and affiliate. I would love to be more B2B. Here's what I told my wife last night, because I had a meeting yesterday that got canceled. Was somebody that's wants to buy the company. The right person that would purchase my company is somebody that already has a catalog. They already have products. They're just adding my product to it, and they already have a sales force. So if they already had a sales force and a catalog, they just took Zuckerberg and everyone else out of the channel. When I worked for iOmega 1998 to 2004, the zip drive was our flagship product. But you know what the most valuable asset in the whole company was by far? Our distribution model. Because we were in every electronic store in the world, literally. A zip drive was in every electronic store. So any products that we wanted to launch or partner with somebody else, we already had the trucks and the distribution. Right. That was the model. So I have a doctor right now, Pedram, who does awesome every month. I tell myself every morning I wake up, if I had 10 more Pedrams, my life would be way less stressful. And that's what back to the basics is that's it. How do I go get 10 more influential people? This is kind of cool. Don't know if it'll happen. Got a call last night. Delia on iHeartRadio. It's been around for 50 years. Mm-hmm. She contacted us yesterday and wants to do a partnership. So back to partnerships and making noise, create content. That's the thing I'm kind of looking at. The funny part is I call it the Joe Rogan scale. Okay. So Joe Rogan's going to be a 10 on how big an impact somebody can have. You got podcasters and stuff that are 2 to 3, depends on the reach. One of my friends is best friends with Joe Rogan. I said, get me on his show. He goes, I can do that tomorrow, but he's going to want 90% of your company. So I got friends who are telling me to do it anyway. Give him the 90, you take the 10 and make all that noise. So it's a trade-off of all of that is how much reach can I get through great podcasts like this? So I do multiple podcasts a week, trying to make noise as best I can to get people interested in it to go look at it, right? And actually our podcast page, so I host most of the podcasts I have on my page, started running ads directly to that without selling anything. And that ROAS today is actually 3.5. It's one of the best ones I have. And there's like a little button that says shop products if you want to. Kind of thing. They're all just content like this that's educating people more on how it works. Right. To help, the other thing to answer your question, I just wrote 2 books in the last hour on PEMF for dogs and PEMF for horses using Manus, right? Taking all the content I already have and putting it in a book format to just give that away as free downloads. So you'll hear that from a ton of people is give free stuff away. How do you generate Instagram pictures? And you are not going to be a success overnight. It's going to be stressful as hell. I'm super fortunate. I think I've never had to take, all right, let me back up. The only investment I had to take is from the financial advisor over here, my wife. I had to borrow $90,000 from her and I paid her back last year. So I have no investments and no debt besides paying her back, but I've had to bootstrap this whole thing, right? I remember walking, I live in Cocoa Beach, Florida. I remember walking on the beach going, I came home, I told Barbara, I said, if we just sold 10 units a day, that'd be $1 million a year at 20% profit margin. That's not a bad job for 200K. She goes, dream on, dreamer. I'm like, so I'm told now that I'm not allowed to bring that up anymore.
Very nice. So, Mark, I want to start wrapping this up. Let me ask you one last question. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think we covered a lot of it for entrepreneurs, but if it's for a specific customer or somebody wanting to use this technology, what I tell a lot of people is there was a comedian on TV in the 1970s called Rich Hall, and he had a thing called sniglets. They were words that aren't in the dictionary, but they should be. And so one of them was no boson. It's bozo and ozone mixed together. It's an invisible cloud that separates people from letting new ideas come in, right? So I wrote an article called Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire for all the Facebook haters. And I said, look at all the scams in this world. DNA sequencing, CRISPR, antibiotics, MRIs, right? We have 300 technologies that are absolutely positively impossible. They couldn't exist until they did, right? It's kind of like Arthur Clarke said, whatever, paraphrasing, right? Is any significantly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right? Yes. So this stuff, even though you don't understand it, hopefully it gets more mainstream. I guess the last comment too that I would say is, I know this isn't going to last forever, so I've been consciously trying to design myself to go out of business. So because I said they're MP3s, I have this dream, and I would have it today, is I want to be able to say, hey, Alexa, run depression in the living room and have it come through the smart bulbs.
Mhm.
I would already have that today if Philips would call me, because Philips has a bridge in their light that I can't get through it to make the light flicker. The other one, I put out a $25,000 contest. On your phone, you have a Qi coil that you charge the battery. Figure out how to hack the OS system so I can run the MP3 out of the coil instead of putting power in. Then I could turn every one of these into a therapy device for a $2 app or something.
Right.
Everyone
Right.
says that's possible, you can't do it. And I'm like, I just haven't found the right person yet to say, I know how to hack it.
Yeah.
Right. But those are kind of my dreams. To answer your question, that was super long, is keep thinking the next steps, right? Because as soon as it happens every day, right? As soon as you find something that's working, I just had this in last week. Yay, the orders went to so-and-so finally. And then next weekend, it fell apart again. It's like, what did Zuckerberg change? So you got to just keep plugging and try and make it work. But
Right.
at least for me personally, I've never had to think this hard in my life. So I think it's good for exercising my brain.
Very nice. Great way to wrap it up. So let me ask you, actually, my last question. So if someone's interested in this device, where do they go to find it?
At Resona, RESONA.health. It's not .com, Resona.health. I have the shortest name in the world, Mark Fox, at 7 letters. If you type that in, you're going to find a Navy admiral and a basketball coach. If you put in Mark L for Lee, Mark L Fox, you will find too much of me, and you'll probably be bitching at me that you can't get my ads off your phone anymore.
All right. I will make sure that Resona.health is in the show notes. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Bela, that was really interesting. What were your main takeaways?
I'm always amazed by people who kind of go from a big company. I mean, he was a space shuttle engineer working for one of the big contractors for NASA. So, thousands and thousands of people. They had a pretty senior position, and they leave that to go to smaller businesses. I've done that a couple times, and I always think about, what are people thinking? And I remember the first time when I left GE to go start the first business I was involved with, and Elaine, my wife, mentioned that to her dad, that Bela's going to go leave General Electric and go find another job. And her dad spent his whole career at one company, Texaco, his whole career. And his reaction was, is everything okay? Is he crazy? And I think part of this has to do with the mindset. And I think it's real important for entrepreneurs to understand this. There's a certain mindset you have. You need to be comfortable with taking risk. But I always had the confidence that if this thing didn't work out, I'd be able to go find and do something else. So I never really looked at it from a financial risk perspective. We always lived our lives very conservatively from a financial perspective. So I always had a little kitty, but I always had confidence that if this startup thing I was going to go do doesn't work, I'll be able to find another job. And I think, Mark has that sort of gene in him as well, also clearly. So I thought that was kind of neat. The other interesting thing I thought is he's starting a business that sort of has this product that he's not like he came out with a new tire for cars and everybody knows what a car tire is. And, you just rant and rave about how yours is better than everyone else's, or it's lower price or something. But this is like, well, wait a minute. What is it? What does it do? How does it help me? So I think that's always a challenge, to do that education. And then the other thing about this product is, how do you establish credibility that this product actually works and it does what you claim it does? So I think that's another big challenge. And, how do you attack that? Do you go to known experts in the field and you sort of, you get them to endorse it, or talk about it, or do you get news articles written about your business? Because if it's in the New York Times, an article in the New York Times about your business, well, it or the product, well, it must be good. That puts a certain stamp of approval on it. Other path is, do you get celebrities to endorse it, right? There's a lot of successful companies that have gotten celebrities to endorse things. You get customer testimonials. So you got to figure out what your strategy here is on both of these fronts. How am I going to educate my potential customers? And then how am I going to establish credibility for my products? So those were the big takeaways for me, Mike. What about you?
Yeah, Bela, I'm always skeptical of products like this, right? I mean, trained as a social scientist, whatever, right? But I really appreciated Mark's approach to this. That's we may not be able to understand everything about this product at a deep level. He was very honest about that. But let's start with results, and he's confident in his results, and then we can work our way backwards from
Right.
there. So I really liked how he was open about this. And this, I think, was reflected in his approach to kind of doing the videos and the advertising, because he's kind of got this way about him that is open and honest. So I think this was cool. I liked his approach about reaching his target audience. I think that was really smart. And I liked his theories about like markups and differentiating. All this was good
Yes.
stuff. So even though I might be a little skeptical about what he's selling, right? I like how he's selling it, and therefore I'm a little more open to listening to the pitch and to thinking about this, right? So I think this is good stuff. And he really is, what came through is he's rewarded by his work and the people he's trying to help, his customers, right?
Yes.
So I think that was
Yeah.
really cool, and that's genuine. So I think it's a cool story, right? And I think and I have a ton of respect for his kind of, you were telling when you quit your job, right? As somebody who turns down a pretty cool career to go take some risk and start on their own is totally commendable. And I like the fundamentals of his process a lot. Any final thoughts on your side?
Yeah, I had one more thought, Mike, and that is, here's a product that has many different applications, and I can remember listening to pitches when I was in the VC business from companies who come in and say, "Oh, I got this great product, and it could do these 20 different things," and it's just sort of confusing. It's like, wait, too much stuff. Pick one and do it really well. And so he talked about a lot of, I think he called them protocols, which are basically various different applications or uses for his product. Focus on one or two and establish your reputation on those. Don't try to do all 10 or 15 of them. Now, sometimes there is value in at least testing the waters on a large number, because you never know which one's going to hit. But you want to sort of do that in a systematic way, because you have a finite amount of resources. You got to be careful not to spread yourself too thin and try to do 10 different applications or protocols, as he calls them, but focus on one or two and get those dialed in really well. The other thing you'll learn from focusing on those one or two is you will do a better job when you introduce application number 3, 4, and 5, because from each one of those, you will learn the important points and the important characteristics and the things that customers are looking for, which features they want, so that when you introduce a new one or an additional one, it'll be a much higher success rate and much faster success rate. So that was my last thought on that, Mike.
Yeah, interesting. I totally agree. So in general, interesting guest, great interview. What do you think? Should we wrap this one up for today?
Yep, sounds good to me, Mike.
All right, listeners, thanks again for listening to another entrepreneurial interview. And we hope that you found the episode interesting and thought-provoking as we did. As always, if you have questions about what we've discussed today, please feel free to get in touch with us. Our email is bela.and.mike@gmail.com.
Hey, and finally, if you enjoy the podcast, hit that like button on your favorite podcasting app. You can also find the podcast on YouTube these days. And if you know of someone that would be a good guest, hey, reach out to us and let us know. And we'll check them out and invite them on the show. So until next time, signing off from upstate New York. Take care.
Thanks, Bela. And from over here in Münster, Germany, auf Wiedersehen.